All right, welcome back to Hindsight is 50/50. I'm Jay Rob, and this is my co-host and dad, the one and only ORG, old retired guy. How are you doing today, Dad?
I'm good. I'm good. We're expecting a big storm. Your mom just called me. She's on the way home and supposed to be like 70-mile-an-hour winds, up to 70-mile-an-hour gusts and
Well, now it's a
hail and
party.
yeah, it's like so. Yeah.
And you guys live out in the boonies where it's like the power may come back today or, next
Well,
week.
I, I have a generator and it's full of fuel.
Is
So
it hooked up?
I fixed it so it's real easy to hook up. I
I
got
gotcha.
like quick connects now, so that's all it is.
Nice.
Well, it's not like one of the Generac ones that automatically, you don't have to do
Where you
anything. It
have
just takes
battery
over.
hooked up to your
I
house? Yeah.
gotta hit I gotta hit some switches and plug it in and start it, but it works and we'll have, you know, power in the kitchen and water and those kind of things.
Gonna
So
say, as long as you can take your number twos, you're doing all right.
yeah, yeah, and and it is hooked up to the AC too. So we should, you know, we should be able to stay comfortable because it's supposed to be 95 on Wednesday.
I didn't even know you guys ever turned the AC on.
Oh, it's your mom. Yeah, it's on all the time.
I
I
mean,
mean,
we have to
she
have it on all
freezes
the
me out, man.
time. You'd hate our house. I have to have like it'll be 68, and I'm like sweating. Like,
Yeah, it's no, I get especially after the heart thing, I get cold really easy now,
oh, for sure. Well,
and
and you're also, blood thinner. Your medications thin your blood.
not anymore. I'm
Oh,
off
your
the blood
arthritis one
thinners.
does that?
Off of the I'm off of the blood thinners. They keep you on those for a year after that procedure. And I've been, they keep you on them for a year. And then if everything's good, they take you off. They took me off.
Right,
So
and that was for the pacemaker. But doesn't your arthritis medication thin your blood?
um
I thought it
Humira
did.
may a little bit. Humira causes a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, like a
Um
third testicle and a fourth
no,
anus.
thing that it has caused and it's noticeable is that now when I get stung and I'm outdoors all the time, I get stung all the time. When I get stung now, it's an event. It's not like a reaction like Jacob, but I like it'll be a knot and there'll be
It's like when I used to
swelling and
get poison ivy as a kid, and it was just enormous.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
And
sucks.
again, the Humira does wonderful things, but that's and part of it I think is just aging too. But
I
um,
mean, we'll all be there one day, hopefully.
well, yeah, that's it. It's like you just keep going. You figure out how to keep going.
So you mentioned being outside recently. You guys got to go outside. I didn't play this year, but you guys did. You and both my brothers and Joe's friend Mike all
Yeah,
got to play in the Manchester golf outing for that supports the youth wrestling program. You said that was a pretty good time out there.
yeah. And that's Joe's baby. It's his time to shine. He always buys the placard, the half ton of fun placard, and won't take any money for it. Um, but yeah, and his friend Mike, who's a great guy, and the one of the coolest things is I know he's a good friend of Joe, and he's a little bit older than Joe. He's like Mike's like 44 or 45, and
Okay.
but he's a good influence on Joe too because he tries to get Joe to relax a little bit, but he's like the rest of us. I mean, he can hit some good golf shots, but he can hit a lot of bad ones too, and it was no different. And again, like I said, it wasn't. I wish you could have played, but you couldn't, and that's okay. And Mike, you know, he filled in admirably. I think he was taken aback at, just the way we talk to each other and the
Oh,
things we
absolutely.
say. He kind of doesn't. I don't think he's used to that. And, there was a couple things with Joe that were just funny. And again, Jacob was in there too. And Jacob and I were riding together and Joe and Mike were riding together. Well, it's best ball. We were on, I think, a long par four. And I mean, our tee shots, they were, it was the typical thing. We never put our shots together like you should in a scramble. We would all hit good shots or we'd all hit bad shots. And so we didn't score very well, but we never do. And again, that doesn't take away from the fun of it. But I mean, we are literally 200 yards away. We can't see the pin. You had to walk up ahead to see the green and the flag. And we're in the rough. Now, we were out there a little bit. Again, we hit 4 drives that were a total of 30 yards apart.
Nice.
So everybody hits.
You're the solid spot.
And Mike, and again, now, and Mike's, he's like I said, he's like the rest of us. He can hit good shots. I mean, he hit the best shot he hit all day. And literally from the rough, from 200 yards away, with a blind flag and a blind green, he put the ball on the green with a fairway wood, and it was probably 25 feet away from the pin.
Nice.
So, I mean, all of a sudden, we're putting for a birdie. Now, like we did all day, we didn't make it.
I was going to say, should you get double bogey?
When he hits that, no, we parred the hole, but when he hits that, Joe is just, how Joe is. He's amped up and screaming. And Jacob, because we all kind of walked up to the crest so we could see that the ball was on the green. And Jacob says, I can't remember if he said I'm hard or he said I got wood.
Yeah, probably.
And I said, I just made. And it's like, and Mike is just kind of sitting there looking at us like,
poor soul.
So, and again, it's like awkward, so
fucking talk dirty.
So
to me.
then we go green, and everybody, takes their putt at it. And like I said, we ended up parring the hole, but we didn't make the long putt. Well, Joe was the last one to putt. We didn't have an order for putting. We just whoever walked up there and was ready to putted. Well, Joe's like the last one to putt. And he's, again, it's 25 feet. It was a tough putt. And we got close enough to tap it in, but nobody had made it. And about the time Joe is ready to putt, Coach Velchek goes driving by to the next tee box. And I mean, he yelled and you could hear it. I'm sure half the golf course heard it. And he goes, "Put it in the effing hole, Joe," only he didn't say effing.
Right.
And
of course, just scream it out the golf course.
And so Jacob, he goes, "Well, that just made Joe hard." And I said, "Well, if I hadn't just made, I would have made again." And and again, God. Mike's just kind of standing there with this quizzical look on his face. But I'm so happy for Joe. He enjoys it so much, and and he was involved in that program for a while, and how much he loves Velchek.
Right.
And Coach Velchek. And I mean, that guy's done some amazing things. Like, I can't remember. I want to say they've won the conference like a ridiculous amount of years in a row. And they've won their district a ridiculous amount of years in a row. And I don't know how many individual state champions they have, but they've gone to team states at least 3 or 4 times in the last 5 years as a group. Or in the last 10 years. But yeah, and again, Joe's just, it's Joe's Glory Day, which is really cool, and I'm just really happy for him. But yeah, Mike was a bit taken aback with how we talk to each other, and how much we give each other crap and all that stuff. But it was a really good time. It was a
I mean, it
really, really
sounded
good
like
time.
you guys had fun,
We
and
did, and the
you guys
weather
were
was perfect.
exhausted.
It was 72 and sunny, and everything was good. And like I said, the food was great. I was shocked, and it was like $70, which is ridiculously cheap for 18 holes and a meal that's any good. And the fact that you're benefiting the
Well, that's
wrestling
it, right? For
club.
some of that money to still go and benefit the club, I mean, that is a
Yeah.
hell of a price.
Yeah, and I'm sure the course, gets a discount, gives Velchek a discounted rate. They said this is the 13th year they've had it at that course, so it was way cool and it was a good time. And then that was the previous weekend, and then last weekend, Saturday, was your mom and my 39th wedding anniversary, and Sunday was her 63rd birthday. And so, and we did,
Boy,
we
I'm
were
sure
pretty
she's gonna appreciate that being on the
well, yeah. She says it. Other,
Happy anniversary. She's this old.
but well, I'm older, so I'll be 67 in September. But yeah,
Oh
and I
god.
wouldn't say that if she didn't share it, because I know women sometimes are funny about the age and
Yeah.
weight and stuff. But she she openly tells people that she's 63. She just turned 63. But yeah, it was it was low key, but we had fun. And on her birthday, I mean, I wanted to take her out to dinner, and she's just like, I just don't want to do anything. I just
She
want
just
to
wanted to
chill.
chill.
And so
So what'd you
she
guys do
did,
for the
and
anniversary?
we did. I again that we like hanging out together. It's like, and I compare it to like how Max just likes, as long as you're there, you don't have to be doing things with Max. He just wants to be there.
That's
Well,
how I am with people. It's like I tell Melissa all the time, I'm like, there's a comfort of you being in the house. So we don't have
yes.
to be hanging out. You can do what you need to do, but like with just knowing you're here, I'm good.
And your mom, she's always playing games on her Kindle or doing these puzzles and stuff, and or reading. She's really gotten into reading again, which is good. It's a good thing for
I'm
her.
surprised she can still read.
And it stimulates the mind. That's a good thing. But yeah, we just, we like chilling and hanging out, and we have breakfast out on the deck or have coffee out on the deck, and it's just it's very relaxing, and we don't have to be doing anything to enjoy it. And I still get out and do my things. I've got, a little garden this year, and you know so I take care of the grass, and I'm getting ready to stain the deck, and I like being retired. I'm enjoying it. But yeah, so it was a monumental weekend as far as events, but we didn't do anything extraordinary. I was reading her your texts about the Jurassic Park movie that you saw.
Yeah.
And you know how I am about hearing about, I think I have, at least to certain frequencies or pitches or whatever, I think I have super sensitive hearing. So if it hurt your ears, I don't want any part of it.
Well, I mean,
But
my ears are sensitive as well, but my gaming buddy, and I'll just use Prime is what we call him. I don't need to use his real name, but Prime has two daughters, and they went to the theater to see it, and he actually lives in Canada, and he's like, dude, you're gonna love the movie, but like, it is so loud. He's like, it's like detrimental to the movie. It's so loud.
okay,
And
but
so I went thinking maybe it was this theater, but I've gone to some movies before where that was the case, and it was just like the theater, blew it out, or it was just the whole movie had tons of music that was too loud. And so Melissa and I went to this, and it is like the new Jurassic Park. I thought it was a very good movie. I thought instead of trying to beat the other ones, which were it's very hard to outdo those. They went more down like memory lane with nostalgia and a little bit of like corny comedy, kind of referencing like the first movie and all of that, because supposedly this is going to be the last one. So they really wrapped everything up, and I thought it was well done. The problem is the movie is just made too loud. And it's the reason I say made too loud is because it's not like you have um, standard scenes where like your music is blasting someone's ears, but then the talking is too quiet and the audio is not balanced. It's like the audio for the talking and the conversations and the other sound effects, whether it's the clicking of a flashlight or anything like that. All of that is perfectly balanced, and the movie sounds great. But then the music comes in on top of that, and you feel like you're bleeding. I mean, it's just it got
Okay,
to the point where like the action scenes, you're like, is the action about to be over? Because holy hell.
well, okay, but if and I know you can't take that out of it, but if you could, if the sound was perfect and it was tolerable and that part was good, just as a movie, like in the standard 4-star rating where 4 is, your favorite movie of all time, how many stars would you give it?
Or's my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, 4's the best movie ever. And, again, that's how it
It's a
is
two
like
and a
on Dish
half.
Network. It's like they give them stars, and 4 is the absolute best.
It's a two
Well,
and a
if
half
that's the
out of
absolute
all
best,
the. It's a two and a half out of all the movies. Out of all the movies I like. But if you're talking about in the trilogy, then I would give it, or in the series, sorry, I would give it like a 3.
okay.
There's one of the Jurassic Parks that takes place I, on a different island with pterodactyls and all this, and that one I didn't personally care for, but compared to the most recent one, and compared to the original, it's not as good as those, but like it brings a conclusion to the series. And
Okay.
again, a lot of this, like you can tell, they specifically made points to either joke or reference those movies, almost like a final goodbye. So it's like if I was gonna watch Jurassic Park, this would not be the one that I would watch repeatedly, unless I was watching the whole series. However, I don't think you can make a better movie without sacrificing any type of quality that wraps up this franchise. So I think they did
Well,
an incredible job of doing that, and this is as good as you could do it because it's all been done. And
well,
the biggest thing I'll
in,
say is this one, because I went into it without seeing any trailers. It's a completely different take on what's
okay.
been going on. So
Well,
it's really good.
that the original Jurassic Park was so earth-shattering and groundbreaking. It was incredible. I mean, the effects, even though they've come, so much farther since the original, the effects at that time were incredible. I mean, they were for that era, they were amazing. And it was groundbreaking. And it's pretty amazing that I mean, I've watched all those movies other than this one. I have not seen this one yet. And based on what you're telling me about the noise, I'm not going.
No,
I'll
it's a
watch it.
great movie to watch at home, even if you got
Yeah,
to rent it at home. But
yeah.
just in the theater, it the loud scenes are pretty miserable.
And but again, when you can make four, what they've made, is this the fourth or fifth? Anyway, whatever it is, and they continue to be that good and that successful, and they all were. I think the Lost World might have been the weak one of the bunch, in my opinion. But again, I haven't seen this one yet. But when you can make them and they're that good, that's pretty amazing. They did a thing over the weekend on that Paramount network. They did all the Indiana Jones movies. And I mean, those first three, they rocked.
I think
I
those are
mean,
the only
those
ones
were
I've seen.
what?
I don't think I ever saw the newest one.
Well, I didn't either. The one that was made so much later, but I'm talking about
Yeah,
the
the
Raiders of the
Temple of
Lost Ark, the
Doom.
Temple of Doom, and the Last Crusade. Those
Yep.
three movies just killed it, man. I mean, and again, to me, and it's great action. He's a great hero. He's, as weird as he is, he's like admirably tough and smart. And, the hat, the whip, the
And then he's got
jacket.
his dad, who's Sean Connery. And yeah,
Yes. And
like
that again,
that just
those
makes it perfect.
but if you look at,
Indiana.
even the Raiders of the Lost Ark, that's an incredible movie. Again, for its era. But they had all three of those, and I didn't watch them all again, but because I wasn't indoors the whole time. But I would turn back and watch bits and pieces of all those, and I liked all of them. But I didn't. I've seen the last one, but it was one of those where I don't even remember it. It was like, okay, well, you maybe shouldn't have done that.
Well, when you're talking about the effects and all that of Jurassic Park and it being, uh, ground or earth shattering, that's one thing that I think is. I'm sure to some people it's probably the forefront of this movie. I loved all of the references that I got. Like I watched the movie and I bet I saw over 20. And some
Uh,
of it was like full scenes. I bet there's hundreds. Um so I mean like the CG. With everyone that's in the scene. I can hear her.
it's okay. Yeah, it's
I'm
okay.
just
You
letting
can
you know
edit
I
that
can hear
out.
her.
Your mom just got home and it's like roar and thunder at
I
our house right
gotcha.
now. But you know, you remember like when Schwarzenegger was making like action films when he was a lot younger. And even the Terminator ones, but
Conan.
Commando and all those that he made. I mean, and he made I liked his movies. I did. And he would always like make fun of himself. He would reference like how many times in a movie did he say, "I'll be back," you know?
Right.
Um, and he would always like, and I don't know if you like Tom Cruise movies. I used to not, but I really started watching them, and I love the Jack Reacher movies. But I tell you, he made one that I think was totally, you know, like it kind of went under the radar. It was with Cameron Diaz
I
called
fucking
Night and
love that
Day.
movie. That's the one that I like of all of his movies.
He was making fun of himself in that movie.
I
The
know.
stuff he was doing was so ridiculous. It was tongue in cheek, and I loved that movie. I thought
I
that
thought it
movie
was
was
so well done.
fantastic.
Yeah, that's like one of the ones I like. By the way, speaking of Tom Cruise, I heard the new Top Gun is phenomenal. Haven't seen it yet, but I have heard great things from a lot
I
of
want
people.
to. I would go see that. And again, based on
Whatever
what you're
she's
telling
dicking
me
around
about
with in the
Jurassic Park, I
background, I
mean,
can
I don't
hear
want
it.
my ears to bleed. Mike, I got enough problems with my ears already. I have to wear cotton balls all the time, and I don't want to. I don't want to lose my hearing. But yeah, that movie, he was like, it was almost like a tongue-in-cheek parody of himself. But I love the Jack Reacher movies. I mean, I like those a
What about the
lot.
series?
You know,
I
I
thought that
liked
was
it
so
okay.
good.
I couldn't put it together. I mean, there's this, and again, he's supposed to be this Hulk of a man
Which he
who
is.
isn't as much of a Hulk as they lead you to believe. Like, we're all big people or larger than normal. So, I mean, no, he's chiseled and ripped, but it's like, I, he was almost like too smart. Like, it was starting to bug me that he was so, it's like he's thinking 8 moves ahead on the chessboard against the best chess player in the world. And it's like, and I don't think you're walking around in a t-shirt, blue jeans, and work boots, even though that's my normal attire. I don't think that you're. And again, there's probably a little bit of Tom Cruise prejudice because I like the Jack Reacher movies, but I did watch the series, and I'll watch the next season. I don't know if it's out now, but I will watch it. I wasn't offended by it. I just thought he was like a little bit too smart for me, you know.
Yeah, I mean, so well, I mean, one, Reacher's supposed to be 6'5", 250.
Right.
And this guy's 6'3", 235, and they've got him in hiking boots. So I mean, and he's, by the way, like 2% body fat. So I think he fits the character pretty well. Uh, the issue I had was like, I don't know the actor's actual name, but he is Thad from Blue Mountain State, which he's like this party frat boy that does drugs, and that is like all that I know him from.
Yeah.
And Joe and Jacob and everyone else, and it's like, in that show while it was on was hilarious, but it's like taking him serious took a little bit. Um, the hard ass shit I didn't really mind. Even the way he walked, to me it was just like a personality thing.
Sure.
Um, it, it was the again. I enjoyed the, I guess, the being too smart part, because it was like he's taking his thought process and showing it throughout the whole show.
Yeah, but you
Like when he
see,
talks
you're
about the
just like
animal
that.
feed,
You're too
when he
smart too.
but
And
when he
it's
talks
like
about the animal feed and it's driving him nuts, and it's like it's the whole fucking season, and you don't find out till the end why. It's like I appreciate that, because I would be the exact same way. I'd be like, I don't. That is a lot of animal
well,
feed.
for
Like
a
I don't.
long time, and I liked some of the Mission Impossibles too. I did. I've liked other movies he's done. I liked Oblivion. I liked the one where he kept reliving. I can't remember what it was. It was that blunt girl was in it, and he kept reliving the same
Yeah, the one where he's
experience.
like in a mech machine, like
Yeah.
not
And
something
I mean,
tomorrow, is
I've
it?
liked a lot of his movies. And like I said, I've liked some of the Mission Impossible ones. But I was always like, I had Tom Cruise prejudice or bias. I
Edge
had
of
Matt
Tomorrow.
Damon prejudice or bias. Like, I know Jacob told me, and you might have told me too, how good the Bourne movies were. And it
So
was like,
good,
and I just couldn't wrap my head around Matt Damon being a hard ass.
but
And
he's like smart.
when I watched them, I really liked the Bourne movies a lot. And I mean, the last one he did, the Jason Bourne one, that was as good as any of the rest of them to me. And again, I with Tom Cruise, it was like he's this little dude,
Yeah,
but I mean, the Jack Reacher ones
him
are
in the
my
Reacher
favorite.
movie. Yeah, it was a good movie, but him being Reacher, just I don't know. It
No, I
didn't.
get it. I get it. And again, that may be why I'm a little bit biased against the big guy in the series because, again, I liked it and I watched it, but it's like I like Tom Cruise's Jack Reacher. I thought he was really good in that. And it's like and again, everything changes as you get older. But I
But the
know
Bourne
we
movies were
got
good.
sidetracked a little bit, and we wanted to talk about, you know, there's just some funny stories about the help that your grandparents are getting. Um, everybody's going to have to deal with this, in one degree or another. Um, your mom's folks are, 91 and 89, and they have 24/7 home care, and some of the things, like, okay, in the first place, your mom manages the help. She pays the help. She helps to manage their schedule. Between she and her sister, they organize menus because they're both, supposed to be on you know, a somewhat restricted diet. Um, and I mean, and like I said, you said it earlier, if we're lucky enough, we're all going to have to deal with something like this.
For sure.
And the stories of the managing the help, I mean, it's like anything else. And I talk to your mom about this all the time. That's the hardest part, is the people, is managing the people. Because, and it's not necessarily managing their time or their hours or any of that. It's the personalities. And I don't remember what she said. I don't know how long they've had care, but there's been a lot of people come and go. Some left because they were sick, some left because they were moving, some left because
They
either
were
one or
asked
the
to.
other grandparents just couldn't get along with them, didn't like them. And most recently, this person who just, your mom just terminated their employment. I mean, this lady had issues, man.
Well,
It's
you
like
said she was a klepto.
she was a klepto for sure. And some of it was kind of, I mean, she didn't take anything of significant value, but she
Yet.
took stuff,
Yet.
and she was doing it constantly.
But I mean, for a
Yeah.
klepto, she didn't take anything of value yet.
Well, yeah, and that's why it's
Like
like,
she's building what she can get away with.
well, but again, okay. Do you remember the Oreo cookie jar at Grandma and
Yes.
Grandpa Scully's?
Where they keep
It
all the
was like
Smarties.
giant Oreos stacked. It looked like great big Oreo cookies, and the lid was an Oreo cookie stacked on like three other great big Oreo cookies. Do you
Yes.
remember that cookie jar?
Yes.
It's got to be 40 or 50 years old. Well, your mom bought these craft things for your grandma, and it was like paints and like, so you can decorate bowls and you can paint.
Like arts and
It's
crafts to keep her busy.
Yes, and to stimulate her mind, which is all good. Well, this person loved that stuff. And in the first place, she she would do all the crafts
Yeah. By
herself. And it's
herself?
like she'd be in another
Oh
room by
my
herself
god.
doing the crafts.
Like, screw
Then,
the old people. I'm just gonna take their shit and do it.
Jared, you got to hear this about the cookie jar, dude. I mean, this is like, and this happened early. And I told your mom then, I go, this says a lot about that person. Okay. The cookie jar is like Oreo cookies. It's, they look like big Oreo cookies. They're brown with the white filling. And she took some of the paints from one of those craft sets and painted the lid that was an Oreo cookie, like with Oreo in it and all the little patterns, and painted it red
Oh, for
and
fuck's
thought it
sake.
was awesome.
Of course she did. Well, why
She did
not?
this without asking.
So
And it's
she
like,
find out she's a crackhead or what?
well, there was
I
suspicion
mean,
of
who does
something.
that? You
And to
painted
say
someone
that
else's
she has
jar in their house?
and I don't want to, I'm not going to mention names, and I'm not going to get into, detail about the person, but This is like weird stuff, man. And to say she has a sketchy past is an
I mean,
understatement.
it
And she's
sounds like
only like
she's a
30 years
special
old, or
kind of
I
stupid.
don't know. She's a young person. But so then it's always like the dog ate my homework, right? It's like,
Oh
well, I'm going to
boy.
be 10 minutes late, or I'm going to be a half hour late. And then the most recent events that led to
Hold
her
on, hold
ultimate
on. A half hour late. Isn't her shift in the afternoon?
3 to 11.
So she's got all fucking day to get there and she's gonna be late?
Again, she doesn't have a vehicle. She depends on rides or her boyfriend for rides, etc. One day, she texts the girl she's relieving, who recommended her for hire, by the way. And she works first shift and she works a ton of hours, and she's a great helper, and she's been there the longest of anybody, and she does a great job. But, she texts her and says, I'm on a moped. I'm running late. Well, what the hell? I
I
don't care
hope
if
you're
you
not
get
fucking
there.
driving.
I don't care if you get there by chuck wagon or skateboard or rocket belt. It's like, I don't care if you're on a moped.
Right, yeah.
It,
What's that have
well,
to do with you being late?
okay. Again, this is how scattered. And I mean, your mom, you know how your mom is. She's pretty direct. And it's like, she like calls her on some of the stuff. She's like, well, okay, there was some markers, like the erasable ones, because your mom has this erase board where she puts like the lady's schedule, and it's like one person might be pink, another one might be blue, another one might be red.
The ladies
You know,
being the help, right?
yes, yeah, the helpers, and there's three of them, and because again they have 24/7 care, and it's like all of a sudden now, and this person is really artsy. All of a sudden those markers, they come up missing, and it's like, and I don't know how much they were. It doesn't matter. If you're stealing change, you're
That's like
stealing.
a third grade thing. Like,
Right.
come on.
And I mean, your
She's
mom
stealing
like called
fucking
her
markers.
on it,
By the
and
way,
it was
what good
like,
are dry erase markers without the board?
and your mom called her on it, and she would not. She would just like sit there and look down. She wouldn't acknowledge having done anything, and she never returned the markers. And
What the
then
fuck?
the funniest, I don't know if I told you about the gas can, but this is funny. So your grandpa's got like this dynamic snowblower out in the garage that he bought. When's the last time your grandpa could use a snowblower?
Oh,
5 years
yeah,
ago or more?
more.
It's been there a while, right? I
For
mean, I'm in
sure.
that garage every now and then. Your mom's in that garage. And he had all kinds of gas cans, like full of fuel that was pre-mixed. Like he had one mixed for the weed whacker, one mixed for the leaf blower, one mixed for whatever. And then he had a great big can of gas for that snowblower. Well, all of that gas is old, and almost all of it is mixed. Well, this person is like getting there and going home on a wing and a promise, probably on vapors. So they discover she's gone in the garage, gotten one of those little gas cans of at least 5-year-old gas that's
Oh
mixed,
no.
and then she leaves the gas can inside the house empty. And it's like, you didn't even cover your tracks.
No,
Well,
it's almost like she like hoped you'd notice it was empty and go fill it up.
and your mom tells me about it, and I go, well, man, if she poured that in her
It's
vehicle,
toast.
it's gonna die, because you gotta dilute that like quickly, like with a full tank of gas, to have any hope of not having an incident. Well, the next day their vehicle broke down. It was spitting and sputtering, and again, I
Oh
think she
my
was late
god.
or couldn't. And it's like, she's not even smart enough to cover her tracks. But I mean, and again, it was just like, she was like touched or something. It was, it was like
Well, I mean, the one
there's
story I
really bad
heard,
stuff wrong with this person.
was that she kept stealing Grandma and Grandpa's pudding.
He has these pills that they have to grind up so he can take them because he has trouble taking them. And I may not get this 100% right, but it's in the ballpark of being right. So they grind them up and they mix them with this pudding, and there's only a certain kind of pudding that it disguises the taste of the pills. And it's especially for him. And it's like, and it's been, especially through the pandemic, it was hard to get. And so your mom's like having to order it by the case on Amazon. And sometimes that was, 6 weeks out. Well, this girl took a liking to that pudding. And it's like all of a sudden the pudding, and the lady who would
Oh
work days is
no!
making this big bowl of pudding that will last him like all week. Well, she'd come in the next day and half the pudding's gone.
Oh my god!
And again, she had like a piece of tape on it. She had a sticky note on it for Bob's medicine only, for his medicine. And this person would just totally disregard that and eat it. And your mom called her on that too, like more than once.
And what did she say?
Nothing. No, she would not acknowledge even communication. Your mom said she would even struggle to look at her. She had to tell her, "You need to look at me."
As an adult, she just would pretend the other person wasn't talking?
Yes. And well, then she started, and again,
Oh my god! I'm gonna start doing this. That is my favorite move.
okay, like like your house, our house. You can tell if somebody's gone through it, even if they didn't take anything. You can tell that because something will be moved or
it's like shuffled.
She went through that whole house in their basement, which is chock full of older people stuff that they're saving and nobody knows why. And I mean, you could tell she had been there, and you don't know what she's taken. She did, again, everything of value. And as this whole situation transpired, like your mom and her sister are narrowing her window of opportunity. It's like they took they took the garage remotes, and she doesn't know the code, and she doesn't have, and they locked all that stuff up. So she couldn't get in the garage anymore. And they started taking the pudding and putting it in the back of the van.
So sad.
Because then she started taking boxes of pudding, and it'd be like 2 at a time. And
oh my god!
no, this lady has.
I mean, like, can you
issues.
imagine an interview? Reasons for leaving your last employer?
I'm not kidding. I mean,
I stole
again,
markers.
some of it you just kind of. And there was no. I mean, again, there wasn't anything of great value that was taken.
But that almost makes it sad.
I know it does. It does. And who, like, okay, she would put on these fake fingernails that were gigantically long and trim them, and then leave the trimmings like laying on the floor.
Oh, for fuck's sake! That is just disgusting.
I'm not making it up.
Real
dude.
fingernail or not, that is just gross. I mean, there's something fucking wrong with you when you do that shit. That's like a person who picks their nose and flicks it. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, or rolls it.
Wipes it on the wall.
Bam.
Is it bad? I think of that Matthew McConaughey commercial every time when they did the skit on SNL. He's driving the Lincoln. They're like, what am I going to do with this booger while I'm rolling it? Do you remember that Lincoln commercial?
Yes.
Oh my God. But this lady, it's like, that's the sad part, right? Is considering what like everyone's going through, even if she just stole the gas, it's like, considering everything that people are going through, you know, coming out of the pandemic, and then also on top of that, the fact that gas prices are astronomical. She'd have been given a second chance, and I know you guys have given her more chances, but it's like that would have at least been reasonable. Like,
Well,
stealing's never good, but that it would have made sense. But like to steal markers and shit and pudding from old people.
and again, the only reason that she was given more than one chance is because it's so difficult to find help, especially that kind of help. It
Well, and you
really
said
is
that
tough. I mean,
the like thievery wasn't the only thing. She was actually claiming credit for other help's work as well,
right.
right?
You know, Grandpa noticed that there was a good smell in, the bedroom, and she goes, "Well, I was on my hands and knees scrubbing the carpet." Well, no, that was the good helper, the best helper, and there are two good ones, but the lady who's been there the longest, who's really good, she was the one who was doing that, and basically was cleaning up the other one's mess from where she was
Oh
painting her
man.
nails and
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh no.
Yeah, but and again,
Well, you said,
going
oh,
back
hold
to the
on. So I
gas
think,
cans real quick, it's like Grandpa has this, 5-gallon gas can that's full of gas, and it's like, God, I don't know how old, at least 5 years. And he goes, and I saw after the gas incident, we're taking inventory, right?
right.
And because he has multiple cans out there, and it's like, well, I'll get rid of that big can of gas. He goes, put that in Jane's van. I go, and call a wrecker?
Yeah.
It's like, no, no. I mean, I don't care if gas is $5 a gallon, 5.29 in Manchester today. It's like, no, no, that you're just asking for trouble. That gas is like the color of like sweet tea. It's not. It's no good. It's, but no. It
Well, and I mean that's
again.
the frightening part, though, is you have a young woman who's supposed to be taking care of people that would make the same bad decision as an old man that's not thinking right.
Well, and again, like I said, that's not to excuse, and because the stealing irritates me, and I don't care if it's 50 cents. Stealing, and
Yeah, that's
I don't
horseshit.
play, I don't play like that, and your mom doesn't either. But again, she only got that much rope because it was so hard to find help, and that's the only reason.
Yeah, well, that shit with her trimming the like acrylic nails and leaving it out. I mean, that's just gross.
Okay, I gotta tell you, did I tell you about the van story with your grandparents?
I
This
don't think
is
so.
like, it's like you remember the Who's on First thing with
Yes.
Abbott and Costello? It's kind of like one of those. It's like your mom, we had to put her van in the garage, Pete fixed it, but it was like $2,100 because she had to have bearings and all this stuff done to the rear end, and it needed the work, and it fixed new shocks, and it fixed it. It really helped it a bunch, and it needed the work. Well, she's telling, like, Jane was, she couldn't go there or be there at a certain time or whatever because her van was in the shop for a day, and he did it all in one day, which is cool.
Couldn't come in.
Yeah. And it was, again, your mom was supposed to, or was going to try to go in because this girl didn't show up and like at the last minute or something called. So it's like your grandma and grandpa again, 89 or 91 and 89,
90
right?
and 92.
90 and 92 right now.
Oof.
So she'll be 91 in October.
She'll be 90. So
Oh yeah. She'll be 90 and yeah, he'll be 92. Okay. So anyway, and your mom's like, or they're sitting there talking about what your mom has said, and I don't remember how it started. Your mom's got the text right here
Thinks that I'm going to buy a new car.
because one of the things, like the help, the really good gal, like she's almost a member of the family. She just about lives there. So after this conversation your grandpa has with your mom, she sends this text of the conversation that they had between each other. It's like your grandpa says, well, I guess they're buying a new car. And Jane had said it's better than buying a new car, spending the $2,100. So
Right.
he says, well, I guess they're buying a new car. Grandma says, no, it was better than buying a new car. Grandpa says, what was? Grandpa says, I don't know. Dad said they had to pay $2,100. Grandma said, for what? Grandpa said, never mind. That was the conversation. I mean, it was hilarious. And then Kim sends that to us, and it's because
no.
she appreciates the humor. It's like, never mind. But yeah, they were convinced, or at least he was, that we were getting a new car. And it's like all your mom said was spending $2,100 is better than buying a new car.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, some of it is just.
I mean, at least they're
hilarious.
having fun.
Well, you know what? You have to, man.
For
You have
sure.
to. If you can't laugh, you'd cry. And it's like I've always felt like that. I've always, I laugh every day. I try to laugh often. I think it's good for you. And I'm just, I'm natured that way. So, but yeah, that was one of those. Never mind.
Yeah, it's just
I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome. But yeah, it's challenges that to some degree or another we're all going to face. Now, their existence is pretty confined. They don't leave the house much except to go to doctor's appointments. But you know what? They still want to live, and they're still hanging in there. So
like a fish tank.
and yeah, and they've planned enough and have enough money to do that, and good for them. It's like, I've been amazed at my mom, at her resilience. You know, like she called Jane on her birthday. She called your mom, and she, sang happy birthday. Called us on our anniversary, sang happy anniversary. And she was saying to Jane, she goes, well, next year we'll go shopping. Well, because again, this COVID thing, as hard as it's been on everybody, you take somebody like my mom, who lived to shop, that's like her favorite thing. It's like, get out of the house and go shop, even if you don't buy anything, just shop. Well, a lot of that, she's had health issues, but she's really bounced back. And again, Alan and I were talking about this morning. It's like, you wonder, like you sit there now and you at your age and you look at somebody my age, and then I look at somebody their age, and it's like, what's in it for you? What could you enjoy?
I
Well,
just think about, can you imagine the fucking shit I'm gonna have to try and figure out when I'm grandma's age? I mean, what the technology's gonna be?
I'm not kidding you, dude.
I'm gonna be so
It's like,
lost.
well, again, there's clearly something. They have a will to live. That's a good thing. And I'm talking about her folks and my mom. They have a will to. Dad got taken from us. It was a stroke thing, and that happens. And we miss him and all that, and that's a fact. But you wonder. You sit back and you wonder, what could there be that.
Well, I think it's different though. I
What
mean,
drives them, and they clearly want to live, so that's a good thing.
we're all gonna have to find something to hang on. But I specifically for the older generations, I life, when it sucked for them, it sucked a whole hell of a lot worse than the rest of us. So I mean, I think a lot of the shit that like seems not fun to us isn't that bad to them. I really do think that's a big. I mean, like when you're talking about like a depression
Oh,
and like no electronics. I mean, like when you're and just even the hard work and building things from scratch yourself, or having the the cooking and cleaning life that grandma had, where it was like, you kill it and I'll gut it and cook it. It's like, I, the things that we go, oh, that's a whole lot of suck and pretty boring. I think to them, it's just another easy day because they've been through a lot worse shit.
You look at like your great grandma Hazel May, and we were looking at the time that from when she was born to when she passed, and she lived to be 94. Now you talk about technology. That lady was alive when the Wright brothers flew the first airplane, and she lived through the landing on the moon. Think about that for a second. That's in one lifetime. That's pretty amazing. And like you said, the technology between where we're at today compared to where we were 20 and 30 years ago, compared to where we'll be 20 or 30 years from now, it's pretty amazing. But in one lifetime, that lady lived through the Wright brothers and landing on the moon. And that's pretty incredible. That's just, when you think about that, put it in perspective, that's amazing. But, I think they, things like when you visit and when they get a visitor, like I pop in, to do things once in a while, and and it brightens their day. It's just a visitor, and it's not that it's me, it's that I'm a visitor and I'm a change up. So it just, it just kind of adds to their day, and it's a good thing. And again, I don't know if we'll have another pandemic. I don't know if we will in my lifetime. We could. But that's something that we've all lived through. And I don't want to compare it to the Depression, because that was serious stuff, even more serious than this. But it's a special
It's our
event that
major
doesn't
event.
happen often.
Yeah. I mean, like, there was, stock market crashes, there's the Depression, there was 9/11, and then there's the pandemic. So, I mean, it's our generation's, or I guess this lifespan's, one of their major events,
Yeah. And it's like, I hope we don't, I hope we don't have to go through another one, but we could.
I mean, we've seen Enron, and we've seen 9/11, and we've seen this all in my lifetime, so I can't even imagine what's down the road.
Right. That's right. But on a lighter note, I know that we wanted to talk at least a little bit about the NIL, the name, image, and likeness thing.
Yeah, for athletes today.
Yeah, and I don't know.
So let's just start off with your opinion. Let's just go opinion first, good or bad, and
bad.
Why? And why?
I think if they're going to do that, then it almost needs to be a salary cap. Because, okay, we all know that schools cheat now, right? I mean, players are driving $80,000 cars and they're not working. And, and that's a regular occurrence. I mean, that happens at some of the in-state schools, let alone what happens in other conferences. And the ones I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
The Big 12's got tons of oil money. The SEC just is, and again, I'm not casting aspersions. I think the SEC is the best football conference in the country, and I think it has been for a while, and I think it will continue to be for a while. But they're already cheating. In my opinion, that's my opinion. Do I have facts to back that up? Nope. But I really do think that they're circumventing the rules, and they found a way to do that. You look at this kid who went to Jackson State. Now, Jackson State's a good school. They put guys in the league. Walter Payton went to Jackson State. But Jackson State's a peanut compared to a lot of the big boys that, where you could play top flight, top division, premier college football. Jackson State's not one of those schools, even though they have Deion Sanders as their coach. That kid got $1 million in an NIL deal. to play at Jackson State. Charlie Batch openly recruited on podcasts this Caleb Williams, who was the freshman from Oklahoma, who ended up following Lincoln Riley to USC. And Charlie Batch was like openly recruiting him. Charlie Batch works for a casino, and I don't know if it's DraftKings or, one of the betting firms that's out there now, the betting organizations, and I don't know which one it is, but he was openly recruiting him. He's going, come to Eastern Michigan. He goes, we'll get you money. And I just think that they have to. I think players have been getting paid, whether it's sleight of hand, under the table, whatever you want to say. They've been getting bennies for a long time, aside from a paid for college education, which I know if you do the math, it doesn't pencil. It's like, yeah, you could get your degree from Michigan and you might be working at Google for $18 an hour. And then where you go to the NFL and you sign a rookie deal and, you're going to make at minimum $20 million if you're a first rounder. You're going to make hundreds of thousands if you're an undrafted free agent that makes a roster. But I just think that it has to be governed, because otherwise, and here's the thing, you even had Nick Saban calling out Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M. And Jimbo Fisher, they had the best recruiting class in the country. Alabama was second. And Saban was calling him out, saying, well, you bought every player. Well, they did. And, and Jimbo fired back. And by the way, Jimbo worked under Saban at LSU, and they were longtime associates. And, Saban calls him out. Jimbo fired back. And then the commissioner of the SEC came in and he just said, hey, you guys need to apologize and shut up. That's not how we do business. And, Saban kind of apologized, but he did say that he still thinks something's wrong with the system. Well, something's wrong with the system. Again, my opinion, because somebody figured out how to do it better than he did this year. And again, you look at those schools in Texas, there's a lot of money in Texas. And there's always been a lot of oil money, and there will always be a lot of oil money in Texas and Oklahoma. And, when you see, again, they're in the same league, they're in the same conference. And, Saban, like him or not, he's got to be on the Mount Rushmore of college football coaches, man. What's he got, 7 national titles?
Yeah.
And
he
gets it
absolutely is on
done.
there.
And it's like every year they're in it. They're, if they don't win it, they're in it. They're in the conversation. And I just think that they have to manage that. Like Hunter Dickinson, at Michigan basketball stayed. He got $100,000 on an NIL deal. Well, that's peanuts compared to what some kids are getting. Like I said, the kid from Jackson State got $1 million, and he was like one of the top, if not the top, wide receiver recruits in the country. And he went to Jackson State. Now, again, that's no offense to Jackson State, but there's a lot more high-profile schools in Jackson State. And if you don't have some sort of control, it's just going to be, it's going to be rampant. And where there's already suspected, sleight of hand, cheating, whatever you want to call it, that's going on, circumventing rules, you just gave them a license to do it much, much worse. I mean, literally, Texas A&M could afford to have, 50 guys making $1 million. That's the kind of money there is there. I don't know that Alabama could do that. My suspicion is they could. They've got good boosters. I think, Michigan probably could. Ohio State could. They've got the backing and the boosters to do that kind of thing. But I don't want to say it's the beginning of the end. I think that's over dramatic. but I don't think it's good for college football. I really don't. Without having some kind of control structure in place. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's a huge crock of shit. I don't think players should get paid, and I don't buy the unfair line. And my thing is, name, image, likeness should be. We already take a roster. Okay, those kids are accounted for. Their uniforms are accounted for. Their educations are accounted for. Their plane tickets are accounted for. Their meals are accounted for. It's like, what's one more thing on tracking an inventory of the number of jerseys sold while they were there? Or if we just took a standard across the board per player and made it one number, and we say, this essentially is insurance money. So what we're going to do is, because everyone likes to sit here and think it's unfair. Let's remember, you get a scholarship and we allow you to play on national TV for you to have the opportunity to win the lottery and play a sport for a career. This is not something that you have the right to. This is something that you have the opportunity to. And it's like, I think people forget that. It's like, you're getting free advertising and free schooling to show off the fact that you were born with a gift. It's like that. To think you have to get paid for that in college, to me, is insane. But on top of that, it's like there should be some sort of fund. But it's like, okay, if we say so many athletes are worth X on each team, right, and that generates this amount of money, well, if we're paying players, how about we just make sure every single one of the players on the team is on scholarship so they're not paying for school? So that way, the guy who is third string on the depth chart doesn't have $100,000 in college debt, while the guy who's number one is driving a Lamborghini with $2 million in his pocket. But on top of that, I don't think you should pay student athletes. They are exactly that, student athletes, not professional athletes. And I think this money that is not paying for the rest of the scholarships should be put in a fund so that if someone has a career-ending injury, it covers it, and it covers their medical bills. There's a certain amount set aside to where if you graduate school and you don't play a professional sport, you get a certain chunk of it once you leave school. But it's like,
if you graduate.
That's where, exactly. If you graduate. And
Yes.
it's like, that's where I think these chunks of money can come in, where it's like, you know what, we did sell number 80 a million times this season because you were number 80. And it's like, I'm sorry that you got too many concussions. This is your insurance. This is what it is. But the way they're doing it now, I think is just pure garbage. But
you remember the Fab Five.
Yeah, and I remember what happened.
And Ed Martin was actually, I mean, that's what the Fab Five was complaining about. It's like Chris Webber, and again, you can like or not like Chris Webber. He can be, he's polarizing, and he's definitely opinionated. But he's like, I see my jersey, my number 4 Weber jersey for sale at the Emden, and I can't afford to buy one. I do think there's something wrong with that. I've always thought that if it should be a flat stipend, they should get,
they already get that.
Oh, I understand that, Jared. I do. But if, like the NFL has a salary cap, the NHL has a salary cap, baseball really doesn't. The NBA does, even though it's, there's ways, but it's okay, if you have,
my thing is, no one
80
forced them to do that. It's not a
or whatever
job.
the number is, then you're allowed X amount in NIL deals.
But this whole stipend thing, even, it's like when they go, oh, well, I can't work a job if I'm a student athlete. It's like, and you don't have to be one.
Right.
Like, how many other electives do we pay you for and reward you for in life? You're choosing to commit yourself to something that gives you the opportunity to make millions. And you're telling me I have to pay you for taking the opportunity?
I'm really I'm really fearful of where this is going.
See, my
because,
thing
again,
is, I think it's going downhill, and I think it's going to go spiraling, not because of just of the entitlement. I mean, what happens when players start making more than coaches? We've seen the prima donnas in the NFL. But my thing is, you're putting this stress on high school kids now. Now, someone like LeBron, who had to um, claim financial hardship to not have to go to college and to be able to go straight to the NBA out of high school, there was at least a path in which you had to take to get there. Now these kids are 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds in high school, accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars of deals and commitments to going to these college. And it's like, okay, so you saw Spencer Rattler out of Oklahoma.
yeah.
And it's like that kid was all world in high school. He goes to Oklahoma. They're booing the shit out of him. He's made hundreds of thousands, got a brand new truck. He ends up transferring out of there. And it's like you could see the depression on him. What happens when our teenage kids who are doing this start committing suicide from this pressure?
LeBron had like a $10 million Nike deal before he graduated high school. He was still in high school, and he had like a $10 million futures deal with Nike.
Well,
LeBron, I just read it last week. He's the first active player who's a billionaire.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, again, and LeBron,
But even but that was futures,
yes.
which is not a guarantee.
Well, I think it was.
That's profit
It
off
was,
of his name, assuming that he continues to be in the NBA.
but it was graduated. Like he got like $1 million while he was in high school.
But a lot of this NIL shit is guaranteed money.
Oh, I know.
And it's right now.
And again, Hunter Dickinson, which in my opinion he should have stayed. In my opinion, the Caleb Houston should have stayed. And that Diabate, they'll both get drafted. And unless they make dramatic changes real fast, they'll both be playing in the G League. And maybe that's cool. But I just, Hunter Dickinson, it's like, well, yeah, I got $100,000 NIL deal. And he goes, I like college. And plus, I can get better, and I think we're going to have a good team again.
But we're gonna pay that kid $100,000, and it's like, okay, you got to go to a major university. You get the education of one of the top universities in the country.
Yep.
And it's covered. And you get that fucking diploma if you graduate. That'll get you a job anywhere. And you are getting advertised not only on the radio, but on national television in one of the biggest conferences in the United States. And we need to pay you money for you to have that opportunity?
But again, that's not coming from the university. That's coming from outside sources. That's coming from like sponsors. That's not out of the university's budget. That money isn't. That's coming from...
No, but being on national television is.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
So does he need to pay that back then? I mean, if we need to pay him to be on the team, shouldn't he have to pay to be on TV?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily see it exactly that way, but I understand your point.
Well, that's the greed part, right? It's like, I understand that the school is getting you in that jersey to sell merchandise, and they're making money, and so are all the broadcast networks off of you doing it. And so it's like there needs to be something set aside, or something if you graduate or whatever the case is. But it's like, I also think there needs to be a rule written in there where it's like, man, it's like, if you're in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft, I don't think we owe you a fucking penny. I'm sorry. Like, you got an opportunity here. And it's like, I know that everyone's going to say, well, it's unfair to say based on my talents, I don't get paid this, I don't get paid that. And that's fine. Maybe there's an exact number for everybody. But it's like, to go out there and pay all of this money. I just think it's wild that, because that's one player you're talking about, and we're even talking about how it's like a minimum of $100,000, and it's like others are astronomical compared to that. And you think of how many student athletes. I mean, we're not just talking football, basketball. This is gonna go across all sports,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's like we're getting to a point where we're paying our youth when they chose an elective, and instead of them being lucky enough to be afforded an opportunity, we're now paying them as if they're working for us. My thing is there shouldn't be any names on any jerseys. There shouldn't be any of this, any of that. You can sell a number 30 jersey because that's number 30 at the University of Michigan basketball team. That is what it is. But it's like this whole name, image, likeness, I think really does need to go away, and it never will now that we've opened Pandora's box. But you're getting into waters that are so deep. It's like, how dark is the future going to be before we realize this was a bad idea?
Well, the Power Five, specifically the Big Ten, the SEC, and the Big 12, and the Pac 12 too, and the ACC too. But I think the SEC, the Big Ten, and the Big 12, they've got the best TV deals, and they've got the most money for those TV deals. And again, they've got the most boosters with money. And it's like, they will tell they basically told the NCAA, it's like, if you don't let us do this and make our own rules, we'll fire you guys and we'll make our own governing body. And they're big enough to do it. And so it again, it's all about money, not just in the student athletes' pockets, but it's about the power that those conferences wield and those brand names wield. The kid from Ohio State last year, he signed $1 million deal as a freshman quarterback, $1 million NIL deal. And he didn't play. CJ Stroud played and beat him out. He transferred to Texas. And he'll probably be their starter this year. But he's never really even, I think, he's thrown a few balls maybe. He got in some mop-up duty. But again, he was like highly recruited, highly touted. Ohio State got him, and he signed $1 million NIL deal, as soon as could. He
And there
signed
needs
it.
to be something tied into these two for charity. I really, and I'm not saying we got to go into like veterans and all that, although I think it's important. We cannot be paying student athletes millions of dollars and have other people unable to afford education or
That's
have schools
fair.
without textbooks.
That's fair. I don't know where it all ends. I really don't think it's a good thing. And I can't imagine. I think the NCAA is kind of like Major League Baseball, and to a degree, National Football League too. They always say no fun league. MLB is super provincial. NCAA, in my opinion, is worse. But when they don't have any teeth, like this Mark Emmert, I'm not claiming I could run it, because you're trying to govern a bunch of bullies that if you do something they really don't like, they'll leave. And they will. And the Big Ten would be one of them.
What happens when that's your players on the field because they make more money than the coach?
Well, yeah. And that's
where we're
all
headed.
changing. That's all changing.
But I mean, like that bully thing, it's like if all the players sit there and they go, yeah, I don't want to run your fucking play. It's like, I'll walk away with my $2 million. Well, what do you do then?
It's gonna come to stuff like that. It really is. It really is. And that's my fear. And I love, especially college football. I love college football. I like it.
The money's not in it.
I like football of all kinds, but college football is my favorite sport, even more than pro football. And it's like, I don't think this is good for it. I don't think it's good for any college sports, but I don't think it's good for college football at all.
Well, and I think this is what leads to paying refs. I mean, it already happens, but it's like when the coaches and the players are making millions and you're sitting there going, well, this fucking sucks and this guy keeps getting in my face. It's like, well, how easy is it to just pay that guy? And he's like, well, this got a whole lot better. I'm going
Like
to call the game
inmates
this way.
running the asylum.
Yeah, and it's
And
unfortunate.
that's my fear. It really is. Because I love college football so much.
It's so genuine.
But I hate to see it go down this rat hole, and I think that's where this is going. I really do. And for a variety of reasons, I just don't like it. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's good for the sport. Again, the schools that have the most money are going to be able to solicit the best NIL deals for
I just
these
don't
people.
understand what the difference is, and maybe that's why my opinion's so aggressive, but it's like, if we start paying younger athletes with their uniforms provided by an entity, their money provided by the same entity, how are they not professional athletes?
No, I get it. I totally get it.
They're not
I
college
agree with
athletes
that.
anymore. Why are they even going to school at that point? But on the petty note of things, to wrap it up, but on the petty side of things, and this is my probably flamingly biased opinion, if you're gonna fucking pay people, it's time to give Reggie Bush his Heisman back.
Yeah.
Because if it's
Well,
just okay,
it's time to
was this the Pete Rose comment?
lift the ban on the Fab Five.
Yeah, no
I
shit.
mean, I just I don't know.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is there's
just
so
a
many
bad-
precedented events in our history that say this is not what you do.
right.
And now it's happening with no rules, no structure.
And again, that Mark Emmert, he couldn't wait to get out of there. And he was probably as good as the NCAA could get. But again, you're not running anything, because if you put up too much of a fight on something, the SEC or the Big Ten or both of them, or they'll get together, and then you better listen, because they'll run you out of Dodge. And he couldn't wait. Like, he agreed to stay on until they find a replacement. Well, good luck with that, because that's a thankless job. And again,
Just crazy.
with the
man.
inmates running the asylum. And I think it's bad for college sports, and when it's bad for college football, that upsets
sucks.
me.
That's home. Yeah. Well,
Yep.
I mean that yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And I'm sure we'll talk more about it in the future, but I think for this episode that's a good spot to wrap up. Are you ready?
I am.
All right. Well, thanks again, all the listeners out there, for listening to Hindsight is 50/50. Please like, follow, share, and subscribe. And as always, be safe, be smart, and make good choices. Maybe I'll be able to talk one day. But be safe, be smart, and make good
be
choices.
sorry.
Yeah. Be oops.
Take money, negotiate a good deal,
Steal
and
that
enjoy.
gas. All right. See you
All right,
guys.
man. Love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.